You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh.
Oh yes, oh yes. And the verse that it says, if you lost out in the sea somewhere, or in the darkness, I forget exactly, but it's something about lost out in the sea, I will find you. And that is so comforting to me. This is Elizabeth Thomas from Clarksville, Arkansas, and out there in Los Angeles we have...
That's Johnny O.
Yes, and welcome again, Johnny O. It's always a pleasure to be connecting with you. He's been new to our show. I was thinking about doing, because this is the end of the year, a kind of collection of all the powerful things, the messages that God has given us specifically over the past year. I mean, I thought, well, Lord, you give us these messages, but who's hearing them? Who's really hearing them and paying attention? And are we taking you for granted? And are we just going, yeah? Just like, we can go to church and we can hear the gospel being read and the scriptures being read on Sundays. And by the time we leave church, you think, what was that reading today anyhow? And you've already forgotten what the reading was today, even though this is the word of the Lord being spoken. You ever think about that, Johnny, how people just, this is the word of the Lord. When you read it from the Bible, this is the word of the Lord, and you just go, yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think about that a lot. I know, because it's really near and dear to me. I always have my books around, and it's very powerful, but I don't think a lot of people get that,
No. And I want to share something with you. I'm hoping and praying that we didn't do this. I don't think we did, because I wrote this down in my journal on the 23rd, and our last show was on Saturday before Christmas, was it not?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the word of the Lord given to me on the 23rd. I was at my workplace and had some quiet time. And again, this goes to show you, and I'm just as guilty, this goes to show you the kind of complacency we have. That there was a Bible that I've gotten into several times. It was the King James Version of my patient's Bible. And so I was just, I guess I'll take a word from the Lord and see what he has to say. And just that kind of complacency. I think I'll just see if God has anything to say. Can you get over that? Shame on me. But anyhow, immediately when I picked up the Bible, I'm hearing in my spirit, in my heart, in my mind, the number 16 chapter. And then, 16 chapter, and then immediately 44 verse. And I thought, okay, I wonder what 16 chapter, what book? And so I first, what I did, I just started thinking of the different chapters that had a lot of books that had a lot of chapters in them. And I knew Isaiah did, but he didn't have a 16 chapter with a verse 44. So what I then did, or started to do, was go to the very beginning and quickly, find a book with 16 chapter that had a verse 44. And the first one I came to was Numbers 16, verse 44. And, this was right at the time that we were having still a lot of problems with the protesting up in New York. And I think it was did the police die before Christmas? Yes, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Anyhow, the Lord said to Moses, get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once. And I'm going, okay, what assembly? What's going on here? So you have to backtrack. Well, before I backtrack, though, the assembly, when he said, I can put them down at once, the next words that were written were, and they fell face down, as if the power of the Holy Spirit came over them, and boom, on the floor they went. So I backtracked to see what the assembly was. Well, the assembly was a large group of the entire group, I guess, the people in the desert who were protesting the fact that the plague had started to come into the camp, and because they got tired of manna and they wanted meat, and so God gave them meat, and they got sick. And so a plague came into the camp, and so they were angry people because people were dying. Does it sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very much connection here. So then in verse 46, Moses said to Aaron, take your censer and put incense in it, and along with fire from the altar, and hurry to the assembly and make atonement for them. Now, see, I'm being given a specific message here because I have been asking God for increased desire for prayer time, prayer life, where I really enter into the praying for the people. Because you see all the need everywhere. But when I'll pray for you, but do you really take the time to Lord and pray with them, have their image in your mind, and think about what they're dealing with, and giving God really sincere, wholehearted prayer? Wholehearted is the word here.
Mm.
So, yeah, right. This is really deep stuff we're going into. God is really calling us again on the block. He's really saying, all right, you guys, I need to correct you on some things. You're not giving me wholehearted prayer. Like, I can give some wholehearted time into playing Jewel Quest and making sure I get every one of those things lined up and out and cleared before the time runs out, right? Are you familiar with Jewel Quest?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyhow, we all do this. These video games where we got to make sure we get it all done and then win. So anyhow, the Lord's been calling me up about the prayer needing to be wholehearted and with love behind it, and to really enter into prayer because there's so much going on in our world that needs prayer. So then, so he went to the assembly to make atonement for them because wrath has come out of the Lord. And these words are right here. The plague has started. Again, connecting us to this day and age. We have a plague that started, as we got the Ebola still going on, but we also have a plague of anger and bitterness and resentment. So Aaron does, as Moses said, and he runs out to the midst of the assembly. And he's standing between the living and the dead. And the plague stopped. And then it mentions this, that the number of the dead was 14,700, which makes me wonder if we're going to reach 14,700 before Ebola is stopped. It's already over 7,000. Anyhow, just about that time, this is interesting how God connects the dots, too, to confirm things. My client calls me to come back into the room and ask for her phone and her phone numbers. Now, what book was I reading out of?
You were reading out of Numbers.
Right. And as soon as she said that, I thought, ching! It's you, God. Okay. So after reading this, I decided to continue on looking for for more, if there's any more, 16s with verse 44. I found one more. It was Ezekiel 16, verse 44. And this particular verse 44 was so boom right at me because I've been dealing with healing of past negative feelings and image about myself. And one of them was the fact that I'm overweight, and my mother was overweight for bless her heart, for as much as long as I can remember. I had an overweight mother, and it caused me embarrassment in my life because the kids teased about my mama being fat and so forth. And it was one of those areas in my life that I had to really pray for God to forgive me because I was angry at my mom because she was overweight, and I didn't have a pretty Hollywood mom. You know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you do.
Oh, yeah.
Anyhow, So this, Ezekiel 16, verse 44, everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb about you. Like mother, like daughter. Boom. Isn't that something?
Yeah, that is. That is.
I mean, it is so. It's God talking, people. So, but what was wonderful about it, as I continued to read it, he mentions that I have established a covenant with you. And this covenant, and there's also the word atonement again being mentioned. And never again open up your mouth because of your humiliation. So don't be afraid to open up your mouth in shame, but open up your mouth because God has given you a new relationship and a new covenant with him. And remember times when you were humiliated and seek healing. And this is really spoke to all the things that I'm dealing with in my life right now. Seeking healing, for one thing, and I praise God that it looks like the Topral was the problem in my life, and I'm no longer having those 9-month symptoms of what is wrong with me. And again, but anyhow, the thing about Mom, though, besides being fat, she had arthritis real bad. And my mother, over and over again, would say, I offer my pains up for whoever needs something, who's sick. And I'm hearing myself saying that over and over again. I offer this up, Lord. Whatever it is negatively that I am feeling, whatever sickness that I am feeling, whatever weakness, whatever symptoms, I offer it up for whoever is struggling with the same problem. That's the only way that we can take sickness and make something good out of it. And Paul says essentially the same thing, that we join ourselves with the suffering of Christ on the cross as a continuation of this sacrifice. I forget how it is exactly words it, but we are joining ourselves with his sufferings for the salvation of others. I think it's awesome how we can do that. Okay, back to my scriptures here. So after reading 16, verse 44, I decided to see if there was any more, but there was no more. But there was 2 that John 16, when I came to John 16, because John has so much in his scriptures that Jesus said this and Jesus said that, I looked at the very last verse, verse 33. This is so awesome. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. So beautiful.
Yeah.
I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. What did he tell me? He told me that everything bad that's going on around, that if I pray and stand in the middle of the living and the dead and pray for them, that this power of this prayer is going to bring a stop to things. And this is true for everybody in the world, not just me, but all people who believe in prayer and the power of prayer. Know that your prayers are heard. And it's very important that we start being more and more people of wholehearted, sincere prayer, because things are going to get worse than what they are. Okay, so I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have troubles. This is the very next thing. In this world you will have troubles. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. Do you see how these messages are lining up?
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
It's right in
line. And it's God, and you know it's God.
Yeah.
He's speaking. I mean, this is not something, you know how big the Bible is.
Yeah.
And you know I'm not going to go, let me see if I can find this and this and this and connect the dots and see how well I can line up a message. Well, that's a bunch of horse manure, isn't it? Okay. One more. Revelations chapter 16. This is how God connects things and confirms the first one out of Numbers to the last one here that I'm finding. I looked at Revelation because I know Revelation's long, so I figured there was bound to be maybe a 44. There was not, but the last verse of Revelations. From the sky, huge hailstones